Chosen one, there was a time when your name carried light, when people spoke it with warmth, when it was remembered, honoured, and held in conversations that felt genuine. But somewhere along the way, their tone changed. The same voices that once cheered for you went quiet. The same hands that clapped for your victories now scroll past your existence as if it doesn't matter. You've felt the sting of being forgotten, not because you faded, but because you grew beyond what they could understand. What they didn't realize is that heaven never stopped speaking your name. While they erased you from their stories, the divine was writing you into purpose. Before we dive deeper into this message, take a moment to ground yourself. Breathe in peace. You're not here by accident. There's a reason you found this message. Watch this video till the end because your spirit is about to remember what the world made you forget. And right now, before we continue, I want you to write your warmest wishes and 777 in the comments. That number is not just a symbol, it's an activation. It means completion, divine protection, and alignment. When you write it, you send a message into the universe that says, I may have been forgotten by some, but I am remembered by heaven. As you type your wish, feel the energy shift. What's written in heaven cannot be erased on earth. They may have forgotten your name, but heaven didn't. Every sleepless night you've had, every tear you wiped silently, every time you smiled through pain, heaven recorded it all. The divine has been keeping track of what others dismissed. You see, being forgotten by people is often the prerequisite to being remembered by purpose. There's something sacred in being unseen. It's the quiet space where you rediscover your worth without validation, where you learn that your existence doesn't need an audience to be valuable. They thought ignoring you would stop your shine, but they didn't realize your glow doesn't depend on attention, it depends on alignment. You were hidden on purpose. The divine didn't let certain people see your value because they would have tried to use it prematurely. You were placed in obscurity so you could grow in peace. People don't understand that elevation often looks like isolation first. You weren't being rejected, you were being rerouted. The silence was your sanctuary, not your sentence. While they were forgetting you, heaven was preparing to reintroduce you. The same ones who overlooked you will one day have to witness your restoration. You've walked through seasons that made you question your worth. You've looked at your reflection and wondered if something about you needed to change to be noticed again. But the truth is, you were never the problem, you were the promise. You carry a light that makes some people uncomfortable because it reminds them of the parts of themselves they abandoned. That's why they distanced themselves. You became too real for people who were still living half-truths. But heaven didn't distance itself. It drew closer. While you felt unseen, the divine was building your strength, your depth, your voice. You weren't forgotten, you were being formed. Think about it, every no, every closed door, every friendship that fell apart, every plan that failed, it all had to happen so you could learn the difference between being wanted and being valued. The divine was teaching you that your worth doesn't rise and fall with attention. You were never meant to fit in, you were meant to stand out, even if it meant standing alone for a while. The ones who forgot you simply weren't meant to remember you at this level. Your presence is too heavy for shallow souls. But here's the truth. They may have forgotten your name, but they'll never forget your impact. The energy you left behind in their lives still lingers. The kindness you gave, the advice you shared, the love you offered. Those things echo long after your name fades from their memory. You're unforgettable, not because of noise, but because of essence. You were never supposed to be remembered for what you did. You were meant to be remembered for what you carried, and heaven has been watching. Every time you felt unseen, it saw. Every time you felt unheard, it listened. Every time you felt unworthy, it whispered your name in rooms you didn't even know existed. The divine doesn't need your name trending to know your worth. It wrote it in light long before anyone could speak it. You've been divinely marked since the beginning. You were never meant to be lost in the crowd, because you were never part of it. The forgetting had to happen. It was divine protection from being celebrated prematurely. You see, some people only clap for you as long as you stay beneath them. The moment your growth threatens their comfort, they pretend not to see you. But heaven saw. Heaven took note, and now every seed you planted in silence is about to bloom in public. The same people who thought you disappeared will start hearing your name again, but this time it won't be whispered in gossip. It will be spoken in gratitude, in recognition, in awe. Because divine timing always reintroduces the forgotten in a way that can't be ignored. You've been hidden, but not erased. You've been quiet, but not irrelevant. The silence you endured wasn't the end, it was incubation. You've been growing in places no one could see, strengthening in seasons no one celebrated, healing in moments no one clapped for. And soon all that unseen work will speak for itself. Heaven didn't forget your name, it's been preparing to echo it louder than ever. The comeback is not about revenge, it's about revelation. You won't need to explain where you've been or defend why you left. The peace you carry will do all the talking. The glow you have now isn't cosmetic, it's divine residue. It's what happens when you've been through fire and refused to turn bitter. It's what happens when you've been overlooked but stayed kind anyway. That's why your next season will be undeniable. You'll walk into rooms that once ignored you and the atmosphere will shift because your presence now carries the frequency of someone heaven has favored. They may have forgotten your name, but heaven didn't, and it's about to remind the world why. There's a strange peace that follows the pain of being forgotten. At first it feels like loss, like the world somehow misplaced your name, your worth, your voice. But then, slowly, something shifts inside you. You begin to see that the silence wasn't punishment, it was preservation. The people who forgot you weren't enemies, they were teachers. They taught you how to stand without applause, how to move without validation, and how to keep shining even when no one's watching. The forgetting was never about your absence, it was about your becoming. Heaven hid you for a reason. When you were craving recognition, the divine was busy refining your spirit. It was shaping you into someone who could be seen without losing themselves again. You see, it's easy to be celebrated too soon. When people notice you before your roots are deep enough, their praise becomes your prison. You start performing instead of growing. You start chasing validation instead of vision. So heaven covered you. It kept you out of sight, not because you were unworthy, but because you were not yet finished. You weren't forgotten. You were protected from being discovered too early. In those quiet seasons, something sacred happened. You learned the difference between being known and being remembered. Being known means people recognize your face. Being remembered means they felt your soul. Heaven doesn't care about fame, and it builds legacy. It was never about how many people spoke your name, and it was about how deeply your light would be felt when it was time to reveal you again. That's why it's taken so long. Greatness isn't rushed. Purpose isn't microwaved. The divine has been preparing a stage that matches your calling, not your comfort. Every time you felt invisible, you were actually in transformation. The pain that made you doubt yourself was molding you into someone unshakable. The rejection that broke your heart cleared space for true alignment. You weren't losing, you were being redefined. And while they moved on and forgot, heaven took notes. The universe doesn't misplace souls like yours. It hides them until the right vibration calls them forward. That's what's happening now. You're being remembered by destiny itself. You'll notice the signs. Random people will mention your name again. Doors that once closed will start to creak open. The energy around you will feel lighter, more magnetic. You won't have to chase anything. What's meant for you will start remembering you too. The opportunities, the connections, the recognition, all of it will return, but this time on the frequency of peace, not the performance. You'll realize that the forgetting was the final step before remembrance. The people who walked away weren't supposed to be part of your next chapter because their memory of you was too small. They only knew the version of you that existed before the growth, before the pain, before the lessons. Heaven had to let them forget so it could reveal the new you without comparison. The version you've become deserves to be met fresh, not remembered through the lens of who you used to be. And as heaven reintroduces you, something beautiful happens. The bitterness fades. You don't want revenge anymore. You don't even need apologies. You just feel grateful. Grateful that they forgot, because if they hadn't, you might have stayed where you were never meant to remain. Their silence became the soil where you found your strength. Their distance became the space where your light learned to expand. You see now that forgetting was never failure and it was freedom. There's a divine rhythm to being remembered. It doesn't happen when you beg for it. It happens when you're finally ready to hold it, and you are ready now. You're ready to be seen again, not as who you were, but as who you've become. You've walked through fire and didn't let it burn your heart. You've been broken and still chose softness. That's what makes you unforgettable, not your name, but your nature. Heaven never forgot your essence. It's been echoing it across time and space, waiting for the right moment to call you forward again. That moment is now. The energy around you is shifting. You can feel it, the pull, the anticipation, the subtle sense that something's unfolding. That's not imagination, that's remembrance. Heaven is calling your name again. The divine has begun to remind the universe who you are. You were never lost, you were being prepared to be found correctly. So stand tall. Don't chase those who forgot. Don't beg to be seen. You're being remembered by something far greater than human memory. You're being remembered by destiny. Every delay, every silence, every goodbye was leading here to this moment of divine recognition. Heaven didn't forget your name. It wrote it into the wind, so even time itself could never erase it. There comes a moment, quiet and unannounced, when you start to feel it, the pull. It's not loud or dramatic. It's not the kind of attention you used to crave. It's something deeper, older, divine. It's the call of remembrance. Heaven begins whispering your name again, not as the world knew you, but as you truly are. The name that carries purpose, not popularity. The one written in light before you were ever spoken into flesh. You don't hear it with your ears, you feel it in your bones. Every coincidence becomes confirmation, every delay becomes direction. You realize heaven never forgot you, it was waiting for you to remember yourself. You've reached the point where everything that once broke you now builds you. The people who turned away did you a favor. They freed you from the weight of proving your worth. You've stopped chasing their acknowledgement because you understand now being remembered by heaven is far greater than being noticed by man. Human memory is temporary. Divine remembrance is eternal. The ones who forgot your name only had permission to know one chapter of your story. Heaven, on the other hand, wrote the entire book. You were never erased, you were being rewritten, and now the rewriting is becoming visible. Things that once made no sense start connecting. The timing feels strange, yet perfect. The doors you once knocked on in desperation begin opening quietly, as if they've been waiting for your knock all along. You'll see it in the smallest ways. People who suddenly reach out, opportunities that seem to appear out of nowhere, clarity returning where confusion used to live. It's not random, it's recognition. The divine is bringing back what's yours, but this time it's refined. You're not returning to old places, you're being elevated to new ones. This is what remembrance feels like. It's not about being popular again, it's about being purposeful. You no longer crave to be seen by everyone. You only want to be seen by what's meant for you. That's spiritual maturity. You've learned to live in such alignment that being overlooked no longer hurts. It feels like guidance. You understand that what's not for you cannot sustain you, and what's for you can't forget you. It will find its way back every single time, no matter who forgot, no matter how long it takes. You'll notice that heaven reintroduces you slowly, intentionally. It doesn't send applause first, it sends confirmation. The divine will begin reminding certain people of your name in the most unexpected ways. They'll hear it, see it, dream it, or feel compelled to reach out without knowing why. That's how heaven works. It stirs remembrance in the hearts that are still connected to your destiny. You don't have to fight to be recognized, you just have to stay aligned. The right ones will remember, the right doors will open, the right moments will unfold. But this season is also sacred because it teaches you balance. When heaven remembers you, attention will follow, but this time you won't be swayed by it. You've tasted the silence and you know its value. You won't lose yourself in noise again. You'll protect your peace, your energy, your purpose. The recognition won't inflate you, it will humble you. You'll remember what it felt like to be unseen, and that memory will keep your spirit grounded. You'll bless others quietly, love without agenda, speak with intention. You've learned that true remembrance is not about being known by many, it's about being known deeply by the divine. You might start feeling moments of déjà vu, like you've been here before. That's because you have, in heaven's timeline. This season you're entering isn't new. It's the one you were always meant for. You're stepping into the reality that was promised when you were still hidden. And you'll realize that the forgetting wasn't a mistake, it was a setup. Because if they hadn't forgotten, you wouldn't have learned how to remember your power. Every time you doubted yourself, heaven whispered your name in reassurance. Every time you cried thinking no one cared, heaven echoed back, "You're still mine." Every time you almost gave up, it rearranged events to keep you going. You didn't just survive being forgotten, you evolved through it. And now, because of that, your presence carries weight. You walk differently, you speak slower, softer, yet with authority. You radiate calm confidence, not because life is perfect, but because you know you're divinely protected. The same world that forgot your name will soon have to say it again, but not in the same tone. This time it will be with respect, with awe, with realization. Heaven is orchestrating your return in a way that cannot be ignored. You won't have to force your reappearance. It will happen naturally, divinely, in perfect timing. And when it does, you'll smile, not with pride, but with gratitude, because you'll know the truth. You were never forgotten. You were simply being remembered by the right source. So when the light starts finding you again, don't hide. You've been in the shadows long enough. Stand tall, not to prove anything, but to fulfill everything. The forgetting season is over. The reintroduction has begun. Heaven has whispered your name into the winds of time again, and this time the world will listen. It starts slowly at first, almost quietly, like the soft glow before dawn. You begin to notice the shift. People who once overlooked you start to mention your name again. They speak it differently now, with an undertone of respect, maybe even awe. They can't quite explain it, but something about your energy feels different. The same presence they dismissed now feels undeniable. You've changed frequencies, and the world has finally caught up. What once ignored you now seeks you. What once rejected you now recognizes you. Heaven is making sure your name is spoken again, but this time it's sacred. The reintroduction doesn't come with loud applause or noise, it comes with clarity. Everything that was delayed suddenly starts to move. Calls come through, doors that were sealed for years quietly open. Faces that vanished reappear, not to distract you, but to witness what grace looks like. Because this is divine justice, not revenge. You're not being remembered to prove anyone wrong. You're being remembered to fulfill what was always right. The same silence that once made you feel invisible has become the stage for your return. Heaven hid you long enough to let humility become your armor, and now it's time to step back into the light. People can sense it before they understand it. They'll look at you and feel peace. They'll feel the weight of your transformation without needing to ask what happened. You carry heaven's fingerprint now, an energy that can't be replicated. That's what happens when you're remembered by the divine. You glow differently, move differently, speak differently. The ones who forgot your name will hear it again, but this time through the mouths of those heaven sent to bless you, not in gossip, but in gratitude, not in whispers, but in wonder. You won't need to remind anyone who you are. Your existence will do it for you. Every season of forgetting has built this one. You had to learn how to be comfortable in silence before heaven could give you sound again. You had to stop chasing recognition before the universe could give it back. The forgetting taught you that your worth is not based on visibility. It's based on purpose, and now that purpose is calling loudly. You're walking into divine alignment where everything you lost returns refined, where every no turns into something necessary, where every closed door becomes proof that you were being redirected, not denied. And here's the most beautiful part. You don't feel the need to prove anything anymore. The ones who forgot, you've already forgiven them. The ones who doubted you You thank them silently because their absence forced you closer to heaven. The forgetting no longer hurts, it healed you. You understand now that remembrance is not about being noticed. It's about being recognized for who you truly are. Heaven's remembrance comes with restoration. Every moment you thought you wasted has been woven back into the story, stronger, more meaningful. You're beginning to see how heaven remembers differently. When people remember you, they talk about what you did. When heaven remembers you, it restores what you lost. You'll see it in the coming days. Old dreams reigniting, new paths unfolding, blessings stacking where burdens used to be. Every effort you thought went unseen is now returning multiplied. Every seed you planted in obscurity is beginning to bloom. The divine never forgot the work you did when no one was watching. Heaven rewards the hidden. That's why it's your time now, and as the world begins to say your name again, it won't just echo in the air, it will vibrate through energy, through purpose, through alignment. People will say, there's something about you, they won't know what it is, but you will. It's the remembrance of heaven showing through your being. It's the invisible becoming visible. It's the prophecy unfolding in real time. You'll realize that all along it wasn't about being forgotten or remembered. It was about being refined. You needed to be stripped of the noise so you could recognize the sound of your own spirit. You are being remembered now, not just by people, but by purpose, not by chance, but by destiny. You'll walk into rooms that once felt too small for you, and this time they'll expand to fit your light. You'll sit at tables that used to feel out of reach, and this time they'll feel natural. Because you're no longer trying to belong, you've become the belonging itself. That's the power of divine remembrance. It doesn't just put your name back into conversations, it places your soul back into alignment. Heaven has a way of making things right without you needing to lift a finger. The ones who forgot you will remember you at the exact moment they need what only your spirit carries. And you'll give it freely, not because you owe them, but because you've grown. You're no longer fueled by hurt. You're guided by purpose. You've learned that when heaven remembers, it restores with grace, not grudges. You don't return bitter. You return brighter. And that light will do more for your legacy than any apology ever could. So let the world remember you in its own time. You don't need to rush it. You're already known in places your feet haven't yet walked, already spoken of in rooms you haven't entered. The remembering has begun. Heaven is lifting your name again, not to remind the world who you were, but to reveal who you've become. You can feel it now, the shift from waiting to walking, from silence to sound. The remembrance has reached its full bloom. The whispers of your name that once felt faint have turned into echoes that fill every corner of your destiny. Heaven has spoken it again, louder this time, not as a reminder of who you were, but as a declaration of who you've become. You're no longer hidden. You've been revealed, not by human hands, but by divine timing. And everything about you reflects that timing perfectly. The way you speak now carries calm authority. The way you move now feels effortless, yet intentional. You no longer chase moments, you embody them. This is what divine remembrance looks like when it finally manifests. The people who once overlooked you now pause when your name is mentioned. Not because they suddenly see your worth, but because they can feel the weight of heaven behind it. You've become more than a name. You've become a vibration, a frequency that commands respect without demanding it. That's what happens when heaven remembers you. The reintroduction isn't noisy, it's powerful in its stillness. You don't need to announce your comeback, your energy already did. You don't need validation anymore because you've realized that heaven's recognition outweighs the world's attention every single time. The forgetting shaped your character, but the remembering reveals your purpose. You now understand that being forgotten was never failure. It was refinement. Heaven had to strip away every false version of you that tried to earn love through performance, that tried to prove worth through effort. Now you stand whole, grounded, radiant, not because people remember your name, but because heaven never stopped speaking it. That's the glow they see, the kind that can't be dimmed by human opinion. You no longer need to be understood, you just need to be, and that's enough. The beauty of this moment is how natural it feels. You're not shocked by your elevation, you're ready for it. You don't question why the opportunities are flowing again, why peace feels constant, why doors are opening one after another. You've grown so aligned that blessings no longer feel random. They feel rightful. This is what it means to live remembered by heaven. Everything starts to recognize you again. The universe bends toward your energy, people speak your name with sincerity, and even time seems to honor your pace. Nothing feels rushed because you've become one with divine timing itself. And through it all, you've stayed humble. That's what makes this moment so pure. The old version of you would have shouted, "Look at me, I'm finally seen!" But this version whispers, "Thank you, I was never lost." You've outgrown the need to prove. You've traded recognition for resonance. You've stopped asking, "Who remembers me?" and started saying, "I remember who I am." That's the ultimate transformation, because when you remember yourself, the entire universe mirrors that remembrance back to you. Heaven didn't just bring your name back, it restored the meaning behind it. The forgotten chapters are now your testimony. The silence has become your sanctuary. Every closed door that made you question your value has turned into a doorway towards something far greater. And now, as the world begins to say your name again, you understand that this was never about being famous or special. It was about being faithful. It was about staying true when no one was watching, so that when heaven remembered you, your spirit was ready to carry the weight of destiny with grace. This is your era of divine remembrance. The tables have turned, but your heart remains pure. The spotlight has returned, but your ego stays silent. The world is remembering your name, but your soul remembers who it serves. You've become the living proof that being forgotten never meant being forsaken. You've become the evidence that heaven's memory is eternal. Every time you speak, peace follows. Every time you move, light expands. Every time you smile, the universe whispers back, "We never forgot." You don't have to force anything anymore. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Everything that left was never meant to remember you, and everything that's returning now is divinely assigned. You've entered the part of your story where being remembered doesn't come with pressure. It comes with peace. You've stopped seeking recognition and started radiating remembrance. Heaven has not only called your name again, it has crowned you with purpose. So breathe, chosen one. You've made it through the forgetting, through the silence, through the solitude, and now you stand remembered, not by the crowd, but by the Creator. The same heaven that whispered your name when no one else did has spoken it once more, and this time the whole world will hear it. You were never forgotten. You were being written into eternity. And now peace has become your permanent language. You no longer wait to be remembered, you simply are. The noise is gone, the striving has ended, and all that remains is stillness filled with purpose. Heaven's remembrance has settled into your spirit like sunlight on calm water. You walk lighter now, knowing that every season had meaning, every silence carried preparation, and every loss led to restoration. The world may finally speak your name again, but you no longer need it to. You've transcended recognition. You've entered divine remembrance. You are no longer trying to be seen. You are the light itself. The journey has come full circle. Heaven never forgot. It was simply waiting for you to remember too. You stand now in complete alignment, no longer reaching, no longer waiting. Everything that once felt distant has returned as peace. The divine has restored not just what you lost, but who you are. You move with quiet confidence, certain that what's meant for you can never pass you by. Heaven's timing is perfect, and so are you within it. The story is whole, the cycle complete. You were never forgotten. You were being refined into remembrance itself. Now everywhere you go, light follows. Your name now carries the sound of grace, not grief. You no longer chase destiny, it walks beside you. Every step echoes divine order, every breath affirms alignment. The silence that once hurt now feels holy. You've become the reminder itself that heaven never forgets what it creates with love.